Hello and welcome to Conspiracy Time with Eric and Aaron. Today I'm joined by our special guest, Sean from Parareality. What's going on, man?
Hey, man, good to be here.
Yes, glad to have you. So if the listeners are following episodes, we have touched on an accident that happened with yourself. So if you want to, I know we just talked about it, but if you want to give a brief update on how you're doing.
Yeah, I'm. Thank you for asking. I'm doing much better. I've been kind of keeping the people who listen to the podcast updated through my social media accounts, through Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and stuff. The 12th of November, which was right before Thanksgiving, I was in an accident, see what happened. What happened was I was driving to lunch, and I saw smoke, and it was black smoke, and I'm like, where's that coming from? Something's on fire. And as I got closer, further down the road, the smoke was thicker and it was like more prominent, and I could tell I was getting closer to it. And I got there, and as I was passing by, it was this house on the side of the road, and it was freaking on fire, and the fire department hadn't gotten there yet. And there were people running around out in the front yard. So I'm like, I have to stop and see what's going on, see if I can help. And I got out, and this, I don't know, she might have been 12, very young girl, was screaming and crying, and she was pointing, and she was like, my kittens are in the house. My kittens are in the house. You have to save my kittens. So I'm like, hell yeah, let's do it. And without even thinking, I just ran into the house. And, of course, I didn't ask her, where the hell are your kittens? I just ran into the house, not thinking. I'm playing, here I am. I'm, dumbass running into the house.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, my God, there's smoke and flames. And I'm like, I didn't even ask where these kittens were. And I hear in the background, so I'm like, so I follow the noise, and there's a box of kittens in this bedroom, which I'm assuming is the girls.
Yeah.
So there's like 4 or 5 kittens in there. I pick them up, and I'm running out, and shit is falling all over the place from the flames. The, roof beams are falling from the house and stuff. And I tripped and fell, and a beam from the house, full on flames, fell down and landed on my knee and shattered my patella. And I managed to, I got a little burn, but not bad.
Yeah.
And I managed to crawl myself out and push the box of kittens out in front of me, and I made it out of the house somehow. I don't know how.
Man,
and, yeah.
That's an epic story. That really is.
Yeah. That's also a full 100% lie. That didn't happen. That's the story I like to tell people.
Yeah.
Because it sounds better than the real thing. No, in reality, my wife and I started playing pickleball, and it was on a Sunday, and she's like, "Hey, let's go play some pickleball." And I'm like, "Okay, let's go play pickleball," And so we're up there, and it's a hard court, And she hit this sweet drop shot over the net, and I'm like, "Yeah, I can get that." So I ran, and you know how you're running and you're hunched over because there's shots low to the ground, and when I swung my paddle and hit it, it made me get off balance because I was running so fast.
Yeah.
And all of my weight fell onto my left knee. And I did. I shattered my patella. I had to be in the hospital for 3 days. I underwent reconstructive surgery and was in a cast from the tip of my toes all the way up to my groin on my left leg, and confined to a bed for it was supposed to be 6 weeks, but it only wound up being 5 because I was a little bit ahead of schedule on recovery. And now I'm in this big brace that covers almost the entirety of my left leg, and I'm on crutches. Thank God I can get up and walk. But it was pretty bad. Surgeon pretty much said that's one of the worst he's ever seen. 10% of my patella is gone. It's never to return.
They had to take it out.
Yeah, I mean, there was nothing they could reconstruct. It I just turned it to powder. This is the third injury to this knee that I had, and this time I just finished the job.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Yeah, so I'm on crutches now, and bend my knee. This brace, we turned the dials on it, and so I can bend it 10 degrees a week, and I'm up to 60 degrees now, which is halfway. What full is 120 degrees, so I'm halfway there as of yesterday. So I'm doing pretty good.
Good.
Still a long way to go.
Yeah.
It's a year's worth of recovery time. So still a long way to go. I just now have, of course, I suspended my podcast. This is actually the first podcast I've done.
Yeah.
Because I had done a podcast in October, and before I could get one done in November, the accident happened. So it's the first time I've been able to do a podcast since October. So I'm anxious. I'm just now getting to where I can get back here into the secret bunker, So
I know, yeah, a lot of stairs lead down to the secret bunker. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That is true.
Yeah.
You've been here.
I have. It's way down there. So
It is. It's deep.
yep.
Well, that's glad you're back. Back to the we were talking before we started recording. You were saying like it makes you appreciate the just the normal functions of a daily person, but also those with disabilities that have to have a whatever it is, like an amputee or some other. Yeah, you were saying you appreciate the.
Yep. It's been. I've gone from like not being able to do anything by myself for the first couple of weeks to now I can do everything except for like wash the bottoms of my feet and put my sock and shoe on my left foot. My wife has to wash my feet and put my left sock and shoe on. It's been really eye opening. I tell you. I mean, if you want to lose some of your dignity, just be so helpless that someone has to do everything for you. Everything. The only thing that I absolutely put my good foot down and refused to let her do was wipe my butthole. Because I was like, it's the last shred of dignity that I've got.
That's fair. That is fair.
And if I can do it, I'm going to do it. So, she had to help me onto the commode and help me off of the commode, and I had to figure out, okay, because this cast went so far up, you can't sit on the commode because you can't bend your leg. So we had to rig up a garbage can so I could stick my foot out, my whole leg out, and rest it on the garbage can. I'm sitting on the toilet, and I couldn't sit all the way back because of the way the cast was, so I had to sit kind of forward some. It's just this weird thing. It's like too much information, guys. I'm sorry, but it was really like I said. It was a very. This has been a humbling experience, and I will tell you, and so will my wife, that patience was not one of the virtues that was bestowed upon me, and I've had to learn how to be patient because I don't have any other choice.
Yeah.
So,
Well, good.
Good enough about me.
Yes.
What have you guys been up to?
Aaron, what have you been up to since about a couple weeks ago? I know it snowed where you are.
Huh?
I know it snowed a lot in Nashville.
I blocked it out of my memory, actually. But yes, so that happened. It was okay where I am. Where Pat lived, it was a little worse. They'd I obviously am more closer to like the city and things happening, so they plowed and got our street was fine, but Pat's more in a neighborhood, so it wasn't great. But I had to emergency dog sit.
Yes.
And the road that these people live on is very difficult to get to if the road is a sheet of ice.
Yes.
So I had to hike like I was in Man versus Wild or whatever. Not really, but I did. I had to walk a little bit in the freezing cold up to this house. Yeah. But the dog is adorable, and it was a good time overall. But
good.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing. Pat?
I've been helping her dog sit.
Yeah. Naturally, yeah.
Yep.
So when it was -11, I'm I've never experienced temperatures like that. So I'm like, I have to get out here. I mean, I haven't, like, for 2 months, I haven't been out of the house other than to, like, go to the doctor's office, you know?
Right.
And so I'm like, screw it, I'm going to experience this shit. So I get on my crutches and I crutch out onto the front porch. I'm in there for like 30 seconds. I'm like, okay, I'm good.
Yeah, I felt the air. I'm good.
Negative 11. So
It was honestly terrible. It was legitimately cold. Even, you know, where I guess the three of us grew up. It was cold.
I wish I could say the same. Wish I could say the same.
But Sean, your dogs were loving it.
oh my God, yeah.
Oh, I forgot about
the
the.
golden retriever Murphy is like, that's his jam. He just like gets out there and sticks his head under the snow and then wallows out a little place and lays down. And he's like, okay, I'm good. Come back in a couple of hours.
So cute.
Amazing.
But the other little dog, the one that doesn't have much hair, she doesn't like it much.
Yeah.
Speaking of dog sitting, she's up for adoption if you care to have a dog. She's great to watch out.
She's up for adoption?
Yeah.
Why?
We'll talk about that off.
She's a handful.
Yeah.
Well, it's long story short, we had a neighbor up the road. She belonged to the neighbor. He got cancer, kicked it on down the road, and before he died, on his deathbed, he was like, told my wife, "We take care of my dog," and she's like, "Yeah, I'll take care of your dog." She wasn't expecting him to die, you know. And like 2 weeks later, he's dead. And my wife comes home. And she's like, "Well, got this dog. Great." You know, I was not included, you know, in the conversation. So now we have this dog, and she was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna get someone to. We're just gonna foster the dog so we can find someone to take the dog." And of course, she's done zero. So now we've got this.
I did not know that. That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, I'm in the market for a dog, but I think it's a wiener dog. So.
But she's almost a wiener dog.
Listen, I will consider it.
Go visit.
I
Yeah.
somehow don't believe you, but
Well, cool. I haven't been up to too much. I went to St. Augustine, Florida, which is an old Spanish British town. Yeah, it's beautiful.
you go to the lighthouse.
We didn't go to the lighthouse, no, but we went to the old fort that was built there in like 15 something.
It looked
And-
so much fun.
Yeah, it was really well maintained. They do a great job. The college there, Flagler, is like all in like old buildings, and yeah, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful town. So,
I wish you had told me you were going because I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but there's this little Italian restaurant that's been run by this family for decades. There's a little hole in the wall that has like 10 seats in it, 10 tables.
oh wow,
That is freaking great. Some of the best Italian food I've ever had.
yeah, we had a couple good dinners. There's some good restaurants. Staying in a little Airbnb is fun,
Yeah.
or just B&B, not Airbnb. Cool.
Like the old days.
Yeah, the simple days. Okay. Well, we're going to start off. I know Sean is always mentioning chemtrails, posting about chemtrails. And I think I'll speak for Aaron on this. I obviously have heard of chemtrails, but I don't know the whole saga of them. You know, when did they begin? What are they trying to do? So yeah, Sean, maybe if you can just give us, you know, some overview, and then I'm sure we'll have questions.
Sure. Well, the first time that I became aware of chemtrails was back in the early 2000s, and I was looking for topics for an upcoming episode of, before it was even podcasting, we were doing internet radio, and it was called Para Reality Radio, and that was my show. And that's when I can't even remember how I initially found out about it. But needless to say, I was kind of skeptical about chemtrails at first. But, being open-minded and inquisitive like I am and needing a topic for the show, I did some of my own research, and that ultimately led me to talking about it on an episode of the podcast. And it actually turned out to be a pretty popular one. So I've talked about it several times, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And what I learned really piqued my interest in the topic, and I've continued to research it over the years. And there's something to it. I think that chemtrails are real. There's a lot of evidence of it. So, what are they? Well, since sometime around 1997 or 98, thousands of people started noticing airplanes spraying like X's and parallel lines and grid patterns and stuff in the sky. We're not talking about like private planes. We're talking about like commercial-sized aircraft. And they were spraying all these different trails in the sky. Like I said, some were X's, some were parallel lines, some were grid patterns, some were just single, and these trails initially look like contrails, but there's something different about them. Contrails are condensation trails, and that happens when the hot engine exhaust out of the plane, it comes out when you're so high up in the atmosphere. When it comes out, it momentarily condenses into like ice crystals, and then that, as it melts, it turns into some pencil-thin vapor trails that eventually just vanish, like the waves behind the boat. And it's a lot like, think of it like when it's super cold outside, like when you breathe out of your mouth on a cold day, and you have the smoke, the mist, or whatever that comes out of your mouth. Think of that as like a contrail. And then on the other hand, you have chemtrails, and these things linger for hours in the atmosphere, and they even spread out and form large cloud-like areas in the sky. So that's kind of the difference between the chemtrails and the contrails. And as for what chemtrails actually are, well, there are several theories about this, but most of the documentation available points to probably some geoengineering as the reason that these spray operations are happening. It's a concept that keeps popping up in major conspiracy theory websites and radio programs, podcasts, stuff like that. A lot of people think, and well, it's not think, it's actually, I think, been proven that there's some aluminum oxide particles that are being sprayed into the atmosphere to kind of create like a sunscreen or a reflective shield of sorts. Some people are thinking that they're trying to counteract climate change, formerly known as global warming. There's theories that say that it's part of Agenda 21 or Agenda 23 with the United Nations, that has to do with population control and thinning the herd, so to speak. So yeah, there's all kinds of theories about what's going on with chemtrails. Who's behind it?
Is Klaus Schwab behind it?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Is Klaus Schwab behind it?
I would not doubt it. I would not doubt if he didn't have something to do behind it. Here in the States, I think it was something that was originally, the concept was originally a government concept, but keeping to true government fashion, the government really doesn't do any of their own work. They hire it out because, they're too busy doing nothing. So that's going to interfere with that.
Of course.
So, I think that the government has hired private companies to spray these chemtrails, and now that they've done it, it's out of their control. And I don't think that the government has anything to say about it anymore. I think it's gotten too far out of hand.
Interesting. So has it become like a big airline thing now? Like, are the planes that we take from city to city spraying the chemtrails? Like, is that part of it?
Well, it could be.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the private companies who are doing it, most of them aren't doing it on commercial airliners, but the planes that they're using to spray the chemtrails with, they are the same aircraft, like a Boeing 737 or whatever, I don't think that you could put something like that on a commercial airliner and keep it secret.
Yeah.
I just don't see how that would work. It's possible, but probably not. I don't think that's a feasible thing. I think it's private companies that are doing it, getting paid by the government, and they're doing it for whatever reason. But there's been studies done where there have been heavy chemtrail action in the skies, and scientists have gone out into those areas, and they've done tests on the soil and the water, and they found increased amounts of barium and aluminum and stuff like that. Just stuff that, normally we should have, some of the stuff in very small quantities. Some of that stuff is not supposed to be there. And what they're finding is that the rates are just astronomical as to, how much there is. And it's all in areas where there are heavy chemtrails. One of the things is that areas that are more densely populated, like, I don't know, Nashville, Orlando, Houston, Dallas, Los Angeles, big major metropolitan areas, you see chemtrails there a lot more than out in the rural areas. And that could also have something to do with the fact that there's not only there are more people, but you probably have a major airport there.
Yeah.
So there's more airplanes. So if there's more airplanes in the sky, then what better way to disguise your chemtrail airplanes is, well, we've got a lot of air traffic coming in. Let's just mix them in with that, because they're going to be flying the same, courses that a lot of the other major airlines are going to be flying, I would assume.
Yeah.
And you tend to see them on clear, cloudless, sunny days.
Mm-hmm.
A lot more than any other time. And Aaron had mentioned right before we started, I posted a picture on my Instagram and on my Twitter, excuse me, about nighttime chemtrails. And I think they've always been around, because you're gonna spray during the day, then you're gonna be spraying at night too. I think they've always been around, but it seems like the last few years I've been noticing those in the sky a lot more. And I don't know if that's just because they're spraying more, or because I'm looking up more. I don't know, but it stands to reason that it's rare that you see them at night. I think the circumstances have to be right for you to see them at night.
Yeah.
A lot harder to see at night than the day. So
Yeah.
I don't know why they wouldn't just spray them exclusively at night, but I'm not in.
saw a post that was going pretty viral on social media that was like, New Hampshire becomes the second state to ban chemtrails. And I went into, I did a little dive on that. I wouldn't call it a deep dive, a very short dive. I was wading in the shallow end of this topic. And there was New Hampshire bill, like 1170 or something like that. And it was to like prevent, it was a bill saying that they were going to penalize any company that uses certain chemicals in the upper atmosphere that's bad for the environment or bad for human health. I don't know that it passed it or not. I don't know that it's gotten the votes it needs to pass, but that was proposed this month. And the reason it said it was the second, there was another county in Texas a while ago that proposed a similar measure, but I don't think that either of those have like actually become official laws as of yet. And then I also kind of was curious about the type of things that you're talking about, like, okay, what is a chemtrail? Because there is the condensation that you were talking about. The jet engine is super hot, sucks in air, becomes super hot, and on its way out, as it hits the cool air, like crystallizes, freezes, becomes a cloud for a little while. And that's just how an airline or how an airplane works. And that's not necessarily anything nefarious. Then there's, if you just type in cloud seeding, like it's got a whole Wikipedia page.
Yeah.
Like what cloud seeding is. So like there are these things outside of just the contrails that you were talking about that do exist that, I mean, I don't remember it all off the top of my head, but yeah, that's like a weather modification thing that I guess is, if it's on Wikipedia, you know, it's not a secret.
Right.
So
yeah.
There are things outside of that, but I was curious based on that like viral Instagram thing that I saw, like what's going on. So I think that one was a little over the top with its conclusion, but based on something that's going on. There are lawmakers that are interested in this topic that are trying to prevent anything getting out of hand. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, it's got a lot of. I'm looking for the right word to say. It's got a lot of. I'm not going to say backing, but the interest has been piqued about this in the last, I would say, probably decade or so, and it's spilling out more than just conspiracy theorists and stuff. I think people are actually finally, looking up in the sky and going, maybe there's something to it. This feels and looks funny.
Yeah.
And they're in, like, I remember when we were talking about it a couple weeks ago, and I was just driving like in the city, and it was such a beautiful day, and I looked up, and literally these things were in shapes in the sky, like perfect, like triangles of like, looked like an airplane, the contrail stuff, but it was like no way, it looks too like, what's the word, geometric or something. It was really strange.
Yeah, it's amazing how some of the patterns will be geometric. I've seen square patterns before.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the cloud seeding page on Wikipedia. So it's not a secret. And cloud seeding is a type of weather modification that aims to change the amount or type of precipitation that falls from clouds by dispersing substances into the air that serve as cloud condensation or ice nuclei, which alter the microspherical process within the cloud. Its effectiveness is debated. So yeah, there's something. I would be curious to know if there was aluminum spraying of types going on, because that's obviously something that would be very bad for people's health. And then I was also seeing something, I think it was like People magazine or something, that did a fact check thing on that exact post that I was curious about New Hampshire being the second state to ban chemtrails. And, I'm not always going to be on the same page as a fact checker, because, they seem to, in this particular article, allude to the World Economic Forum's full of people who have our best intentions at heart, which I don't necessarily agree with. But that's where I got the information. That's where it led to some of this information of like, okay, they're talking about this bill and this bill hasn't passed, and like it's probably not going to. And the others, Texas, as a state, didn't ban chemtrails. There was a county that tried to do something about protecting their airspace from different kinds of pollution. But it was an 8-page bill, the one in New Hampshire. And I'm from Massachusetts, so I'm a little bit more curious about that one, but I haven't read all 8 pages yet. It was saying that people could get up to $500,000 in fines or 2 years in prison, or up to 2 years in prison, or both, for pollution in the air. It's
like speeding in a work zone on the highway.
Right.
Signs.
Yeah.
That seems incredibly hard to enforce. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, on one hand, it seems like there's something to it if there's lawmakers that are concerned about it, but I certainly don't know enough yet. All I've really heard of is the cloud seeding, the weather modification stuff, and the weather modification stuff is just interesting. Like, they can modify the weather. That's pretty wild.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just think about on its face. And also, like, whose idea was it? Who's approving this? I don't know. I'm sure there's reasonable explanation for some of it, especially if it's like farming or something. They're like, oh, we need more rain or we're going to starve. It's like, oh, well, I mean, I don't want to starve, so maybe that's a good idea.
Seems like a bad way to go, yeah.
Yeah. but yeah.
You're right about if they're spraying aluminum, that it's, probably not healthy for us. And like I said, it's been discovered in areas where there's heavy chemtrail activity, that things like barium, magnesium, manganese, aluminum, lead, iron, sodium, are there in abundance, and they're being found under kind of like unusual circumstances in our drinking water supplies, in ponds, rivers, lakes, in the soil. In Southern California, in I believe it's the Mount Shasta area, they did an analysis there, and the aluminum levels there. It was a pond in Mount Shasta, I believe, and they measured the aluminum levels there, and it was like 12,000 micrograms per liter of aluminum, and the normal that's considered to be safe is 0.5 micrograms per liter.
Wow.
So that means that the levels have increased by 24,000 times or some shit like that.
Yeah.
You're talking about toxic water.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's like a separate topic we could go into about how bad the water actually is in the U.S., which is something I stumbled on like a year ago after drinking tap water for fucking years. But
now you can't drink bottled water because it's got like 100 times more plastic particles in it.
Literally, Eric and I's parents just read. Like, my dad just found some article on this 2 weeks ago, and he was literally he was like, Aaron, have you heard about? Then we've been talking about this for at least a year. He was just Terry's what can we even drink or eat?
Yeah, what can we do?
And it's so true. But
yeah, I saw a meme. I think it was on Instagram where someone posted this person at a grocery counter or restaurant or something was like, yeah, I would like to get the food that doesn't have all the cancer-causing agents in it, and the response was, yeah, we can get that, but it'll cost extra. And that's kind of what it's like.
Yeah.
If you want to eat healthy, you're going to have to pay extra to do it, which is stupid.
mm-hmm. So true.
This is somewhat related, not directly, but I was listening to Joe Rogan, and they were doing. I was watching the UFC fights, and they do like a live stream. But Eddie Bravo, who I'm sure everyone's at least familiar with the name, he was talking about these airships that were like the precursors to planes, like the Hindenburg, which is the one most famously that blew up and caught on fire. But he was talking about all these old pictures of these airships in the air, and there's Zeppelins, or what do they call them now? Blimps. They're like blimps, but they were like all over the place apparently. Like travel, like you could get in them and travel from place to place. And he was saying that the Hindenburg was like the big event that like took that out of history because it blew up, a bunch of people got killed, caught on fire. And then the Wright brothers, obviously, with the airplanes, and then the Nazis creating the first jet engine powered plane. I just thought that progression is a little interesting.
Yeah, that is.
You know, there's all kind of conspiracy theories going around about the Hindenburg, about what happened to it, why it blew up, and what actually caused it.
Yeah, because it was massive. It was huge.
Oh, yeah.
So big, and it just caught on fire and blew up.
And one of the reasons why that was, I guess, so big in history was because there was actually a radio reporter, because this was a big deal, the Hindenburg coming in, you know.
Yeah.
And there was a radio reporter that was on the ground that was reporting on the whole thing when it blew up, and you have live, you know, coverage of an actual disaster happening as it was going on, and this guy's reaction to the whole thing was, you know, is what made the event famous.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine, you know, take the Titanic.
Yeah.
It's probably one of the most famous shipwreck ever. And can you imagine what it would have been like if there had been like some dude in a boat, you know, like recording the whole thing? You know, can you imagine?
Yeah, that'd be wild.
It would have been. You know?
Yeah, the Titanic is baffling, and then those guys that went down to try to see it in that little submersible, and then, man, yeah, I don't like to. I know they died, but like, man, that was just not the smartest decision.
No.
Jeez.
You're getting controlled by an Xbox controller or whatever.
Oh my god. Yeah. Anything else on chemtrails?
No,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I could talk about them for a long time. But
Yeah.
I don't wanna.
I want to
That
get.
was great.
Yeah. No, that was good. Good coverage. Okay, Pat. You got the air.
All right. So we were out last night, and somehow like Whitey Bulger came up, and I was like, "Oh, wasn't he part of like MK Ultra experiments?" Like, what are you even talking about? And I was like, you know what? What am I even talking about? Let me figure that out, and I'll get back to you. So I found it today. Let me see. I saved the link somewhere.
At this point last night, I had zoned out of the conversation. And then this morning, he's like, Aaron, I found it.
Right.
I'm like, what are you talking about?
Was he Whitey Bulger? Was he a hitman or a mobster?
So, okay, so some backstory for those who don't know. I'm from Boston, so he was the head of the Irish mob in Boston, basically.
Ah, okay.
And so the conventional story, and this is all true, is basically, you know, he's from Southie, so South Boston's like the poor Irish part of Boston, or historically it was anyways. And so he was from that area, and when he grew up and became like a teenager or whatever, got into crime and stuff, but his best friend from childhood went the other way and ended up becoming, being in the FBI, and his brother ended up being like a senator. So by the time they're all adults and well into their life, whatever. He's a mob boss for the Boston Irish mob, basically, and his friend is a director at the FBI in Boston, and his brother is a senator or works at a high position in the government. I forget which one it is, and so he kept on getting arrested, but being let out of jail, and the Boston cops, they had no idea why, and we now know that he had a deal with the FBI because his best friend from childhood was the director there, that he would inform on the Italian mob. So he had like informant protection status, so he kept on getting let out of jail even though like they knew he was a murderer. And so the deal was like, because earlier, before he like really rose to power, the Italian mob was way worse.
Yeah.
And they like were always trying to get them, but they just could never get anything solid on the leadership. So he had this protection status where he was like, I'll inform on the Italian mob if you overlook what I'm doing with the Irish mob. And anyways, it basically like spiraled out of control because he was just killing so many people and was like dealing so much heroin. And I think Boston had like the highest crime rate per capita at some point in the 90s. And it was because it was him, basically. So anyways, somebody in the FBI figured out that there was a collusion going on between the two of them. They're both, Whitey got a warrant for his arrest from the FBI. Now, it wasn't local police, so he couldn't get let out. He was hiding in California for like 16 years. They found him a while ago. But anyways, in hindsight, now journalists have found out that before he became the crime boss in Boston, when he had gone to jail for some low-level petty crime and was in a prison where they were running the MK Ultra experiments. And in it, they were offering the prisoners a deal that was like, hey, if you participate in this research for schizophrenia, then you get a reduced sentence. And now we know that those were LSD experiments.
Damn.
And so I found an article from PBS, so like a reliable source, that's about one of the jurors. And the title is, After Learning of Whitey Bulger LSD Tests, Juror Has Regrets. One of the jurors that convicted him of murder to life in prison. And it's saying, trying to find some of it here. Yeah, so just a little clip from the article. Gottlieb, who was the CIA director, or the director of this program, I forget exactly, but Gottlieb's secret program, known as MK Ultra, enlisted doctors and other subcontractors to administer LSD in large doses to prisoners, addicts, and others unlikely to complain. In Bulger's case, the mobster and fellow inmates were offered reduced time for their participation, and told they would be taking part in medical research to cure schizophrenia. So, yeah, he was part of the MK Ultra experiments, and that's pretty wild to know that, especially with all the other ties that he had with his friend in the FBI, his brother as the senator. It just kind of piles onto the wild situation that it was, and apparently, you've got even jurors from his murder trial being like, "Hold on, whoa! I didn't know that he was part of government mind control operations."
So
my thoughts a little bit, and I remember seeing it on the news when this was happening. I forget, I was in high school or college, and like everybody knows who Whitey Bulger is. Like I was dating a girl in South Boston. Her aunt had everybody in South Boston has a story about Whitey Bulger. Like, he was a great guy. He was not, but I remember seeing that he was like his final statements. When they're like, do you have any statements for the court at the end of the trial? Like, yeah, I didn't get a fair trial. This was ridiculous. And I just put those thoughts together recently. Like, oh, that's probably what he was saying. Not that I have any sympathy for him, because he was definitely a criminal that killed a lot of people and destroyed his own community with drugs. But that is just a wild thing. Like, I put those. Oh, he was probably like, guys, the government gave me LSD and turned me into a murderer. Like, I would have liked to have said that on the stand, and he couldn't.
He should have. That's awesome.
Yeah, wild stuff. So, thought that would be useful.
And not out of the realm of possibility either. I mean, you know.
Right, because kind of goes back to the Charles Manson type stuff where he kept on getting let out of jail all the time, and they didn't know why, and they couldn't lock him up until after they had done whatever the stuff where they murdered the woman and tried to make it seem like frame somebody else to try and like start a race war or something, and he was distributing LSD stuff. Yeah, so it's kind of like, oh, was this kind of the same thing over here, just on the other side of the country? And it's like 20 years later.
Connecting the dots, man.
Yeah, that's it. So, interesting to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, to basically say that, like, the government picks these people and then puts them in positions to where they can literally control what they do.
Right.
I mean, that's fucking terrifying. It's really terrifying.
Yeah. Our government at work.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like the Manchurian Candidate.
And then it's just wild to know that PBS will say it. And it's just like, wait, hold on. What?
Yeah.
This was on PBS? And we're all just walking around living our lives?
Well, yeah, you too many distractions, you know? Gotta. Yeah.
Absolutely. But
That is a good one, and I honestly had not heard of that, so good find.
yeah.
Neither had anyone else that was there.
Yeah. Well, that's to be that's a very regional specific personality. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, good. We got a few minutes left. Aaron, you got anything? I know you haven't talked a lot.
Well, that's for the better. Yeah. I have some fun facts.
Oh, yeah. Close us out.
Aaron.
Yes.
So this is one that I have I did no research into this one. But
Okay.
I saw a video, and honestly, Eric, it might have came from you. I can't
Probably.
remember, but
Yeah.
It was a police officer, and he was saying that they are never trained to spot, like, they're trained to spot fake IDs, but they never actually look at a fake ID in their training. So they only look at, like, a real ID from every state, but they are for some reason never given a fake ID.
Wow.
And the gist of the video at the end was like, it wasn't really about that, but it was about like living your life with like discernment and like being able to be like, okay, I know what's right, therefore I can figure out what is wrong or like unjust.
Interesting.
Or, you know, that was the gist of it, but I just thought that was crazy because here in Nashville, like, our parents get ID'd, and I'm like, why are you IDing them?
Yeah.
So we just thought it was funny, and I saw that video, and yeah. So last night we were at dinner, and I was telling them about it, but so they're just out here really guessing. If
Yeah.
IDs are fake or not.
Sounds about right.
So this is crazy to me, and I literally have never understood how this is possible, but it's that thing how if there's 23 people in a room, there's a 50% chance that 2 people will have the same birthday.
Yeah, have you ever have you ever paid attention to your Facebook birthdays and how many people that you know that have the same birthday?
Yep.
And it's I mean, I guess it's not weird, but like I look at it and I'm like, oh, that person I went to high school with has the same birthday as this person I just met, or it's just strange. Yeah.
I know. I feel like in my life it doesn't happen, but I agree on Facebook. I'm baffled. Like 6 people will have the same birthday.
Yeah.
You're like,
Yeah.
what? Yeah.
How does the math on that work out? There's a 1 in 365 chance somebody
I don't know, but we're on a time limit.
Yep.
We're on a time.
Pat, I agree. I would love to know the details. Oh, damn. Having some technical difficulties. Oh. Okay, I lost him for a second. And we... Yeah, looks like it's still on. Well, if that's the end of the episode, I hope everyone enjoyed it. Apologies for the technical difficulties, but unfortunately, that is what happens when you're working with when you're working virtually. So you can follow us on Facebook at Conspiracy Time with Eric and Aaron, and make sure you follow us. I'm working on getting the artwork on Apple Podcasts moved over to Conspiracy Time. But you can follow us on there at our old name, World We Live In Podcast. Make sure you follow, rate, and review. You can follow us on Twitter at World We Live Pod. And yeah. I think that's going to be it. Unfortunately, I'm not able to get them back. So, hope you enjoyed the episode. Follow Sandman at Parareality Radio, and he'll get back on it after his rehab. And that's about it. So, thank you guys for listening. We'll catch you later. Be safe and take it easy.